You're listening to the Himal South Asian podcast, Partitions of the Heart, Conversations with Harsh Mander. This is Season 1, Muslim Life and Death in Modi's India.
Salam, Namaste, Zindabad, friends. I welcome you to this very special episode in the series that we are doing, Partitions of the Heart. And in this season, we are looking at the crisis of India's Muslims today. I'm doing this with, I'm Harsh Mander, I'm doing this with Himal, which is this extraordinary publication which has been looking at South Asia for the last 35 years. Today our guest is somebody very, very special. Many of us regard Professor Irfan Habib as nothing short of a national treasure, both for his understanding of human history, of Indian history, but also for the moral sort of compass that he holds for all of us. We are at his home in Aligarh, a home that was built by his father, who was also a professor in Aligarh. Way back in, I think the house was built in 1931. Professor Irfan Habib, of course, does need no introduction for people both in India and in South Asia. Professor Irfan Habib, along with Ramnath Thapar, are two most respected historians, public intellectuals, and as I said, somebody who holds a moral compass which helps us understand where we are today. So, Professor Irfan Habib, thank you so much for joining us in this discussion.
And thank you so much for your kind words.
So, Professor Irfan, I wanted to start at the present and then go back and forth. 22nd January 2024, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, presided over the consecration of a Ram temple at the site where a mob had pulled down the Babri Masjid in 1992. The cabinet passed a resolution a day or two after the consecration, when they said that in 1947 it was only the body of India that became free, and the soul of India, according to them, was freed only on 22nd January 2024. For somebody who, you're 94 years old, I think, for somebody who has seen in India, the struggle for India's freedom, the horrific moments of partition, and the building and the imagination of new India, and this entire journey. May I ask you, in your opinion, when did the soul of India become free?
Well, it's questionable if a country is like a human body or animal body and has a soul.
Yes.
But if India had a soul, that became manifest, I think, in our national movement.
Right.
The exact date of freedom had nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. The struggle for freedom had everything to do with it. Mm-hmm. And this kind of dismissal of 1947
Right.
is extremely objectionable, because it seems to wipe out the entire story of sacrifices that were undertaken by those who joined the freedom movement.
Right.
Those sacrifices came to an end with 1947. And then we had our independence. Now people who had nothing to do, or their political ancestors had nothing to do with the freedom movement.
Yes.
Now they are saying that they have achieved freedom now, as if minority rule was present here, and when particular act of majoritarianism is displayed, then that's the time when India got freedom. This is extremely illiterate kind of perception, and does harm to the memory of those who fought for Indian freedom and who obtained it in 1947. So I think such kinds of statements are very objectionable and seem to censure the Indian freedom movement, of which the present political regime was not a part.
I totally agree, Irfan Sahab. And I think there is something else that is underlying this, which is that India actually, and the Prime Minister Modi often speaks about 1,000, sometimes 1,200 years of slavery, which he is bringing to an end, which literally means India's medieval history, where we had many rulers who were of Muslim identity, was a period of slavery, and that in the many early decades of India's freedom, again was a continuance of that slavery, because the true enemy within, which was India's Muslims, hadn't been confronted. I think that is the subtext of precisely what they said.
Well, I think, of course, this is what they have been saying, and the Hindu Mahabharata is saying, and the opposite statements had come from Muslim communalism, which ultimately succeeded in getting Pakistan.
Right.
So this is a very narrow-minded and communalist view of Indian history. There are so many accounts of India of the Mughal period,
Right.
both internal by Hindus and Muslims, and also foreigners. And hardly any foreigner who came here thought that India was being governed by Muslims.
Yes. Yes.
And whether you take François Bernier or you take the English merchants and so forth, most of them wondered how it was possible for what today we would call secular, but what they said a non-religious regime to take place.
Or multi-faith.
I mean, they couldn't, of course, get the term right,
Yes.
but it was all so different from Europe and the Islamic world that anyone can just practice whatever religion he likes. The Mughal period.
Yeah.
So the kind of Hindu-Muslim division, the Hindu-Muslim division was there, of course, but this kind of Hindu-Muslim division was not present.
Right.
There are so many works by Hindus in Bengali and other languages. I deal with their letters in Persian. And almost there is no conception that India is ruled by Muslims.
Yes.
India is ruled by Mughals, the Mughal emperor, but he is an emperor of all. So, what kind of the kind of
Slavery that they claim existed. Yes.
I mean, their concept that they are slaves, that is not neither the fact that they are citizens, nor that they are slaves. It's a different kind of regime. You pay tax and are to a particular degree protected by tenets of law and order. That is all. The modern concept of democracy and democratic republic was not present.
Yes. But it was still a place of religious freedom, which I think was very critical. And do you think India is relatively unique in this aspect of its history? the freedom, religious freedom?
Yes, it's of course curious thing that when Aurangzeb started his sectarian policy and pulled down 2 temples in Mathura and Vrindavan, there's hardly any degree of statement or excitement in the personal papers of the Pandits of Mathura and Vrindavan, which I have examined, which are incidentally all in Persian. Hardly none in Braj, very few in Braj, and only in those cases where they were dealing with peasants. But where they were dealing with each other, they wrote in Persian. So,
It was not
nothing
seen as
like
a
that.
cataclysmic kind of moment.
No, I think this was all kind of accepted that there would be Mughals and the Mughal officials, and you would be dealing with them, and sometimes you are expected to pay a bribe, and sometimes surprisingly not. Everyone knew the occasion where a bribe has to be offered and where a bribe is not demanded or expected. So,
The attempt to cast us at that period like a period of religious crusade is an extraordinary one.
I think the difficulty is that one can't, many people can't read Persian, but if you look at the vast correspondence among Hindus of that time, and which has survived, I was surprised that in Mathura there are 350 such documents in
Okay.
Persian, which I have got and which I have. Not a single one refers to the burden imposed by jizya.
Okay.
Every other kind of complaint is there,
Right.
but jizya is absent. And I have still been wondering why it is so. Was it that Pandits were or higher castes were exempted from jizya, so it didn't matter? But it's certainly very curious.
Yeah, I think that the larger question, what they're trying to do to India's history, and every authoritarian leader in history has always tried to change history and to rewrite history. But the rewriting that we are seeing, on the one hand, is trying to erase any positive contribution of rulers who were of Muslim identity. They're trying to recast them as oppressors. They're trying to also give the idea that people who converted to Islam did it under under the threat of violence, ignoring that a large mass of the people who converted to Islam were people from disadvantaged castes who were looking for a future. So all of this, and likewise they're trying to reconstruct, reimagine their role of the Hindutva right in the freedom struggle, to downgrade the contributions of the Congress and the left and so on. So how do you look at this entire business of rewriting history? What are our children going to learn about this land?
Well, actually, this is not rewriting of history, but actually manufacturing history.
Yes.
We all know that in the freedom struggle, the ideological ancestors of BJP had no role, apart from the fact that Savarkar submitted at least 3 apologies.
Yes.
And whereas ordinary Congress people never submitted any apologies,
Yes.
thousands of them. So, to forget their sacrifices
Yes.
is not an historical offense, it's a crime.
Yeah. Yeah. But to imagine an entire generation which is growing up today and studying in school will not even know this history how is it going to change this land itself?
Well, I mean, it is difficult for us to imagine that any student of history looking at modern India would not answer questions on
Medieval
Quit
history,
India revolution or Cripps mission and so
or
on and
even
so forth.
Gandhiji's assassination.
Gandhiji's, of course, as far as Gandhiji's assassination is concerned, the fact that a large number of Mahasabhites celebrated
Yes.
is a well-known fact. How they were then insulted is also is not equally well known. I think that their houses were surrounded and they were manhandled, and it was often Congress leaders who protected them from the angry mobs.
Yes.
All that happened after Mahatma Ji's assassination. And of course, fewer people is present there, but I had just passed my high school examination. And I had entered the university because this happened in January. Yes, I was a university student at that time.
Right here in Aligarh.
Aligarh, yes.
So, I mean, Irfan Sahab, I mean, I've listened to you very often, but I still find perhaps the most moving of your lectures, from my perspective, is the one about the last months of Gandhiji's life, which was
Yes,
his most painful, but also the most significant in terms of his public contribution. When the cabinet passed this resolution about the soul of India awakening only on 22nd January 2024, I began to ask myself, when do I think the soul of India became free? And I feel it was during those last months, precisely, when we could have become a mirror image of Pakistan, and we chose not to. Uh, in your, in this very moving, and I would recommend to every person who's watching this podcast, do listen to Irfan Saab's recollections, his lecture, recollecting those months. You spoke about being this young man of 19 years. You spoke about the slaughter that was going on all around, the fact that Muslims were increasingly being made to feel that they didn't belong to this country. Uh, and in that, you speak about how important it was to you and to many people like you. But as a young man at that time, what how do you recall those months now?
Well, I would contest this that Muslims were made to feel they were not part of the country.
Okay.
I think one of the major reasons of Muslim immediate Muslim acceptance of India and Indian freedom within India
Yes.
was the remarkable fact that despite the riots coming up to what was then Punjab, to the border of UP, except one or two places there were no riots in UP. And I think much credit goes, of course, to Gandhiji, because at that time it almost seems that Gandhiji was God in this part of the country.
He was our moral conscience in a sense.
No, the way that when his fast started, how people went from Aligarh to Delhi. Nobody asked them to,
Yes. His last fast
but trucks after trucks,
went. Yes.
apart from their local leaders.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult now to even imagine what control Gandhiji had on ordinary people in UP. I mean, there was, I must give credit to the Congress government at that time that they made all the proper arrangements. But the fact was that with Gandhi going to fast and before that his prayer meetings in Delhi and so on, UP was quiet.
Yes.
There was, I think, no, apart from Aligarh and so on, which were in Aligarh, the army, there was a Kumayu regiment had been, crack regiment of the army had been sent. People used to say by Sardar Patel, whatever, but I think they thought that Aligarh, containing the Muslim university, needed particular protection. That so they had a whole regiment posted here. But I think the people at large throughout UP, there was no response to riots in the Punjab, and much credit therefore goes to Congress, the only political party at that time, apart from communists who were very in a minority. But Congress played, its congressmen played a very important role at that time.
And so this idea of equal belonging was very real for India's Muslims at partition. This idea of equal rights, equal belonging to this country.
Well, this idea, of course, didn't come immediately, and it's true that a very large majority of Muslims in UP who voted for the Muslim League. A share went to the Congress, I think about 20%. So it is not true that all Muslims disregarded the Congress, but of course the bulk went to Muslim League in the 45 elections. But the protection that was given to Muslims by the government and by local Congress leaders was, I think, a very rare event, in the sense that they were being abused by Muslims all the time, and they are now here coming forward
to protect
and saying that no Muslim will be touched and so forth and so on. I heard the local leader here was Thakur Malkhan Singh, and I heard him saying that Gandhi ji has said that no Muslim will be touched here. And you are all to carry out his orders. He later on joined the Socialist Party, but he was a leading. So I think much credit goes also to the local Congress, who regarded Hindu Mahasabha as their main opponents rather than Muslim League.
Anis Kidwai, in her memoirs, writes about her husband was killed during the riots trying to save lives.
Mussoorie.
Yes, she came and met Gandhiji before his assassination, and she said he was obviously very despondent with the violence that was unfolding, and she recalls that he said, "Beti mera kaam tab tak pura nahi hoga जब तक एक मुस्लिम बच्चा बिना डर के इस शहर में खेल ना सके. My work will not be complete until a Muslim child doesn't feel that he can play freely." So it was that message that I think even the Congress carried in that time.
Yes, the Congress carried, and I think much credit must go to its local leaders also.
Yeah.
Whether in Meerut district or Aligarh district or Dehradun, it was the local Congress leaders who took the lead in their main opponent was not the Muslim League but the Hindu Mahasabha.
No, it's interesting that you say this because the Congress leadership today, when we fast forward to today, sometimes says appropriate things on the communal question. The problem is that the leadership down the line doesn't hold that ideological clarity and commitment. Irfan Sahab, you were on the ringside. You had a ringside view during Partition and Gandhiji's and the entire Congress leadership's contribution that you spoke of. But your father was also a very devoted congressman. In the idealistic years of nation building in which the Congress under Nehru played this role, he was also a good friend of Nehru. I, of course, was born about 8 years after India became free, but I still remember my childhood as a time of collective idealism. There was, we are a partition family, we never heard bigotry and so on. So what are your memories of that first decade and a half when we had the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru?
Well, actually, there was much hope. And I must also say that the Congress governments of that time,
Right.
Chandban Gupta and others, C.B. Gupta was so unpopular. But if you look at his regime, no case of corruption ever came out.
Okay.
He lived in very ordinary circumstances. He was so pleased with my father. My father was a friend of his. That when my father gave his nephew a ballpoint,
Okay.
C.B. Gupta had never used a ballpoint before, and he said, "Professor Habib, how does it work? Without an ink, it works." So these were the people.
You feel really nostalgic for a time when public service was considered, if you were in public office, you had to live with austerity.
No, for instance, C.B. Gupta was so unpopular,
Yes.
and twice he was defeated.
Okay.
But when I was traveling to Delhi once, and I got into a first-class corner because there was UGC was paying for it, and there was a chap sleeping on the upper. When we reached Ghaziabad, that chap got down, and that was C.B. Gupta, Chief Minister Uttar Pradesh. At that time, he was Chief Minister.
And the simplicity with which he.
And he slept
On the upper berth.
on the berth because people believe that you will disturb.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of that.
At that time, almost everyone said that we should have socialism, and I think there was Nehru's policy was very popular because industry would be built
Through the public sector.
through the both.
Okay.
It was a public-private because of the simple fact that private capital was not sufficient.
Yes.
Everyone could understand that. So you had to have a state capital, and Russian assistance came, and then Americans followed. And then his foreign policy also,
Right. The non-alignment.
independence and non-alignment, made Indians feel very proud.
Yeah.
And both my wife and I went to England in 1955 or 58, and we were always very proud that India was being criticized in English press for not doing what Americans and the British want.
Yeah. There was, and this business about democratic dissent and its centrality and
always
its
a difficult.
acceptance. It was, in the times we live in now, it's hard to remember that this was, particularly because if we have a defining feature of today's time under Modi's India, the treatment of India's Muslims as if they are an enemy within. How was it in Nehru's time under the shadow of partition and so on? How did India's Muslims, especially working class Muslims, how did they feel at that time?
I felt as far as middle class was concerned, they had they had very good prospects in Pakistan.
Okay.
And so they went on leaving. I couldn't be sure when I went to class in my first year or second year whether the same teacher would be there or he's gone to
Would
Pakistan.
move on, yes.
But the fact that Muslims were not ill-treated, and Congress leaders didn't speak about them, and Nehru, of course, was different all the time. All that counted, and after the first 6 months, then the departures for Pakistan became rarer and rarer.
Okay, yeah.
At that time, there was also this job rotation. Hindus and Sikhs were coming and their jobs were available.
Right.
So that was a factor also.
So, Irfan Sahab, we flash forward from that time of idealism, of equal belonging for people of every faith, of religious freedom and so on, to where we've reached today under the BJP RSS leadership. What went wrong over the decades? I mean, where did we start? Where did we lose our way? Because it isn't as if suddenly something changed now. And, I just like to suggest that if there were three pillars of Nehruvian India, it was socialism, secularism, and non-alignment. All three have got completely demolished today.
Yes, I think one of the reasons was that Congress carried out a large amount of reform.
Okay.
First, zamindari abolished, then the redistribution of land. Both were very important measures. But after that, Congress found it very difficult to pursue.
And if I can just interrupt
I
you a
mean,
little.
one would also not suggest what could they do.
Yeah, yeah.
And by 1991, the state sector was in crisis.
Right.
So then the shift to the private sector and so on, in which Muslims suffered.
Why was that?
You see, in government sector and so on, the discrimination was not there. But private sector,
Was overtly.
Muslim employment was very small there.
Yeah.
So, and then the original enthusiasm of the land reform wore out. Muslims got land as Muslim peasants, as the other peasants.
Right.
Landless laborers also got land, so that was satisfaction to them. And of course, in land records, there could be no discrimination, their names were recorded. But when it comes to private employment, they suffer discrimination.
Right.
So, I think that contributed to their disenchantment.
If I look back to Nehruvian India, I believe that unlike many other countries, maybe we should have focused a lot more on primary education. Do you think that would have, on universal primary education?
So we did try it. I don't think it's. I think it would be wrong to say we didn't. I mean, as far as UP was concerned, the attempt was to get all the children to school.
Yeah.
It's a different matter that schools were of different qualities. Sometimes teachers just grew salaries and didn't do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's very difficult to say what a government could do in these circumstances.
I still feel that maybe our land reform should have gone deeper, and universal primary education should have been more strengthened.
Well, actually, it was the law.
Yeah.
But most schools in the villages, either the students didn't turn up or the teacher didn't turn up.
So public investment should have been much higher in primary education, do you think?
I think more than that, there's a concern that people should do their duties. It's very difficult to say what could have been done.
What could have done? Yeah.
Very difficult.
So, Irfan Sahab, one of the central pillars of the BJP RSS has been is the changed status of Kashmir. How do you look at that?
Well, I think it was wrong to deprive Kashmir of its statehood, and it should be restored, fully restored. And Ladakh should need not have been separated.
Right. But what were the implications of it? Was it because for many a Muslim majority state like Kashmir was almost the test of our secular identity?
Well, we did very well. I think we regarded Kashmir as a special case, National Conference as a special case, their constitution as a special case.
Right.
And clearly, just because Kashmiris were Muslims, BJP was hostile to their constitution, and the first thing they did was to abolish it.
Right.
So all this is has been extremely harmful as far as our case on Kashmir is concerned.
And the second sort of major agenda of the BJP RSS, as you know, was the Ram Mandir. And we've spoken a little bit about it, but what is terrifying for me is how new sort of alleged temples are being discovered under mosque after mosque. This business about correcting real or imagined wrongs of history hundreds of years ago, the consequences of it being borne by people of Muslim identity today, as a historian in particular, do you think that even this idea that you have to correct wrongs of history in today's times?
No, but first of all, it's a wrong idea.
Yes.
We are bound by the Indian Constitution. We are not bound by precedents in Mughal history. Secondly, the whole question of temple destruction has been wildly exaggerated.
Wildly exaggerated.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example from Mathura. True, Aurangzeb destroyed a very important temple, high temple, which Bir Singh Bundela had built. But if you look at the Persian documents,
Right.
no other temple was touched. Their land grants continued.
Okay.
And when a land grant, in fact, this is an actual case when the Jat rebellion broke out and the Pandits lost their land grant. The Mughal administration under Aurangzeb simply issued a duplicate.
Okay.
So, all that I
have written, yes.
There are some 350 documents of Mathura and Vrindavan, all from 17th century and some from this time.
So you're saying first the idea itself that there was large-scale temple destruction itself is a falsehood.
But remarkably,
Yes.
while all chronicles say that jizya was imposed and this was it fell heavily on the poor and so forth, my documents show no resentment to even a mention of jizya. And what I then deduce from it is that Pandits must have been excluded.
Because they write the documents. Yes.
No, because the documents concern their
Concern. Yes.
not a single mention anywhere of jizya. All taxation, otherwise we have to pay tax, and they are going to the revenue collector and saying that, we are over-assessed. But no reference to jizya at all.
Okay.
So many things. I also in my book I said that this was a very harsh tax per capita thing. But when I actually look at the documents, I've not yet found an answer to why
It was such a...
jizya is totally excluded from these documents. Either perhaps that Pandits, Brahmins were not taxed with jizya.
Yeah.
It's possible.
But also, I feel that the third question is what I call the doctrine of vicarious responsibility. The idea that people today have to be avenged for real or imagined crimes of the past. That principle, and that again is something that we're seeing around the world.
Yes, and also the justifications, for instance, you probably know that in the syllabus that the UGC has now put forward, caste system is put after the arrival of Muslims.
It's such an extraordinary.
So the implication is that caste system was strengthened, if not established, in order to resist Muslims.
Okay.
This is the argument.
Sometimes they say the British also brought the caste system.
Yes, but no, the medieval period, then coming of Muslims, the caste system. And they don't realize that in the ancient India, a large section is devoted to the Rajputs,
Yes.
which I think were never heard of in ancient India before 9th century. So there's a whole section on Rajputs. And how they think Rajputs were there without the caste system is.
Is part of that imagination. But the third, central pillar of the agenda of the RSS is what they call the Uniform Civil Code. I see two kinds of debates. One is, should there be a Uniform Civil Code? Is there something in the interest of gender justice and secularism for there to be a Uniform Civil Code? And second is, of course, the way that the BJP governments are interpreting the idea of the Uniform Civil Code. It seems it's only Muslim personal law that needs to be revised and increasingly reflect Hindu personal law. So, what is your reflection on this? Because this is a very rapidly unfolding agenda at this time.
Clearly, Muslim law has to be revised because it doesn't suit modern principles. For instance, polygamy is not permissible. So,
and adoption, for instance, is another, and so on.
Adoption and the adopted
Child should have
child's rights.
Yeah.
About rights. So, it's a. I think there should be, and I think when Muslims go to England or America, they realize that they have to be bound by that code. So I don't.
So there should be a uniform. You're not against the principle of a uniform civil code.
But that should not be a Hindu code imposed on others.
Yeah. And also, I mean, almost the implication that it is only Muslims who have personal laws which are gender unjust.
Of course, Parsis have.
Yes.
It's not only Muslims. Parsis have.
I mean, Hindu personal law for a long time discriminated a great deal against women's right of inheritance, of the rights of widows, etc. Arundhati Roy's mother fought a long battle against Christian personal law. So the idea that personal laws need to become more gender just
Well,
is
of
not.
course, since daughters get only half share in Muslim law, that's very unfair. It should be corrected.
Yeah. Since you're a historian and you can take a broad view of history, this moment in the journey of our republic seems an extremely difficult and fraught moment because the politics of hate seems to be on a sort of on an ascendancy and it is not. I mean, it's not about Modi. It's about ordinary people, more and more being attracted to this divisive, unequal, hateful idea of India. So, and many things are happening. If you're doing namaz, you're being picked up. If lynching has become routine. The idea of love jihad and so on. The temple, mosque. We're seeing every day some kind of new aspect of this politics of hate. But I'm saying India is not unique because we are seeing the rise of similar politics around the world. Do you think this is just a moment, a cyclical moment, or is India transforming in a fundamental way, very different from how it was imagined in the freedom struggle?
I'll give you an example. You must have noticed that after the elections
Right.
and before the announcement of the result, Modi said that I'm going into meditation. Perhaps you remember.
Right.
And correspondents asked, what would you be meditating on? And he said, how can Muslim reservations throughout India be abolished?
That's it. Okay. So yeah.
And no newspaper, practically every newspaper reported it in small headlines,
Uncritically.
subject of a meditation.
Yeah.
But nobody said that Indian Prime Minister should speak like that
Yeah.
for a minority.
No, I think that what this regime has clearly established is that the Muslim is the enemy within, and the muscular 56-inch leader is the one who can take on this enemy within. I think that's the subtext, which is hardly a subtext now. It's
But sometimes they modify it when they have to deal with Qatar or Saudi Arabia.
So it's only Indian Muslims. The enemy is only Indian Muslims.
No, that is all right. But
Arab Muslims are very
even for them, they.
Yes.
But
I've been
they have
asking.
one advantage.
Sorry,
That
please.
Pakistan is in such a dire position. I mean, nothing sensible seems to
Emerge from
emerge
there.
there.
Yeah. And this idea that yahan Hindu khatre mein, Hindu is in danger. I find it absurd that now Pakistan, if the Muslim is in danger, Muslims are 96%. They're still in danger.
From themselves.
From 1.5% Hindus, 1% Ahmadiyas, 1% Christian. फिर भी खतरे में है, that.
और अहमदियों के साथ तो ऐसी ज्यादती करते हैं कि आदमी की समझ में नहीं आता. Killing them.
With Ahmadiyas, yes, absolutely. And the brutality and the blasphemy law against Christians. Whatever one says about Pakistan, I visited it many times. I find that however oppressive the regimes have been, the Pakistani people actually show more vibrant resistance than we have seen in India. Do you agree with that?
Well, I went to Karachi long back, around 25 years ago. And I must say there was much appreciation for India because in the non-Punjabi population of Karachi, they still identify themselves with UP.
Okay.
Women wore saris, not shalwars.
Yeah. Even Mangal Sutras, my wife found they were wearing.
I see.
Yeah.
I didn't look so closely.
Yeah.
And I remember I spoke on Indian historiography and spoke against communal interpretations, which is the normal way I would have to. Then when I had finished and there were some questions, one chap rose and said that, Professor Habib, you were all right in what you said about India, but remember, communalism is the official doctrine of this country.
Okay.
It's Pakistan.
No, that's exactly it. I also gave a series of lectures in Pakistan, in Gordon College and other places, and I spoke about gently but firmly about the idea of India and the idea of Pakistan. And I said the idea of Pakistan is that your religious identity defines you in your completeness, and you're safe only in your samenesses. The idea of India is that we are safe only in respecting difference. So in a brief sense. And I was curious as to, and the students were very responsive. And there was very little hostility. They talked about it. A lot of them agreed. Some of them didn't
So
agree.
now the hostility is from India's side towards Pakistan.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
absolutely. The kind of generosity that ordinary Pakistanis show us, I shudder to think what a Pakistani faces when she
No,
comes
when
here.
they come here to History Congress,
Yeah.
see, there was when the government of India was different, I received a phone call and said that Professor Irfan Habib, I'm Secretary Education, and don't tell me you are not an office bearer of the History Congress, I know all about it. But we are surprised that you are not inviting scholars from China and Pakistan.
Okay.
Bangladesh you are inviting, but not. So I said, no, we actually don't invite, we don't have the money. Bangladeshi scholars come from grants of Dhaka University, just like Indian scholars. So he said, no, we would give you a grant and I'll send you a letter. And that's true as his word. They paid for China and Pakistan. But in fact, that payment would not be affected because both Chinese and Pakistan governments paid their fares, their own scholars' fares. Pakistan government also.
Also, okay.
So there used to be, I mean, I'm talking of 1980s,
Even till then, there was a certain openness of.
quite considerable openness. I
But
mean,
it, but it was also generous.
Ministry
Yes.
of External Affairs
But
asking me why you are not getting scholars from Pakistan.
but despite General Zia, despite General Zia's,
Despite General Zia, actually, my wife went to Pakistan during General Zia's time, and there was very great friendship. And she said she received friendly receptions from ordinary people also, that you are from India. But I think with BJP government, that kind of feeling must have declined.
yeah, I have not been to Pakistan again in more recent times. But no, I was still talking about resistance. I mean, the Faiz Ahmed Faiz, the song that was sung during Zia's regime and so on. That kind of powerful, charismatic resistance, I don't see it happening in India in the same kind of. Or am I wrong?
Or not in Pakistan. There's more in Urdu
Okay.
poetry than in actual opposition. The division between UP Muhajirs and Punjabis is very deep in Pakistan,
And it hasn't
especially
got.
after the separation of Bangladesh.
Yeah. Irfan Sahab, in all the podcasts that I've been recording, I always ask a question, and you've already spoken a little bit about it. Do you see hope for India recovering? I've said this again, but I still want you. And if so, where? The recovery of the idea of India, if you
Yes,
like.
a hope in the long distance, because in mid-90s, one can't have any hope in the next 3 or 4 years that one would live. But ultimately, I think India is a large country with varied languages, and I think a pure Hindu religious philosophy can't unite the country. Pandit Nehru's ideas did, because he combined rationalism with a plan for the future of India, both agrarian reform and also economic reform and also industrial construction.
And I would add his celebration of India's pluralist sort of cultural heritage. I think.
Well, of course, much depends on what cultural heritage you are celebrating.
No, Nehru, I was saying Nehru did.
But he celebrated the rational part of our cultural heritage.
Okay.
So, and I think he was fairly critical of our past also.
Yes.
It's not a simple praise of India.
So, in that, you said in the very long sweep of history, we will, in this large diverse country, we will pull
We are
back.
bound to differ, to have a different future.
No, I keep longing for hope, so that's why I keep saying, my hope is in the way ordinary working class Indians still live their lives, which is much more pluralist.
No, that is all right, but unless they organize and resist, it's very difficult to see how BJP's present policy, which is veering more and more to the right,
Yes. With global alliances.
local alliances,
Yes.
local issues. I was surprised that about 2 months earlier, Yogi issued a circular saying that wherever there is a UP government statement or anything, a poster in Hindi, there should also be one in Urdu.
Yes, he said that. Okay. I also find that the RSS speaks in multiple voices, and you're pushing this, but you're also saying everything else, and you can choose one or the other when they have to.
No, RSS has this technique that they can be very liberal in interviews. The present leader particularly. But it doesn't have any effect on government policy.
Yeah. Or even the practice of the militants of Hindutva. They seem quite unaffected by the occasional liberal statements. Which actually brings me to the last question that I wanted to put before you, which is that 2025 is a significant year in the journey of our republic because it is also 100 years of the RSS. What is the place of the RSS? How do you see it again from the very particular sight of vision of a historian?
You see, first of all, RSS was created before the Nazi takeover, but after the Nazi takeover, it was remodeled on the Nazi stormtroopers. And in fact, in 1939, Glogol Volker cites Hitler sympathetically. So clearly, it has been a fascist organization. But now I think in the RSS leadership, there is a view that RSS should perhaps alter the general impression of a fascist organization and even an anti-Muslim organization.
Isn't it too late to do that?
I think that's my personal impression, perhaps it would be very wrong. RSS found is that they gave the slogans, but they have been shouldered out, possibly.
Because there seems, if I'm understanding you correctly, I feel the crisis in India's politics is that both on majoritarianism and the market sort of fundamentalism in a sense of the economy, there's actually a consensus across the political spectrum except the left.
On several motives, but not on communal questions. And I think RSS is more concerned about the communal part of it than the economic part.
But even the Congress and so on seem to be almost wanting to pretend to be as communal as
Yes, I think you are right in that Congress doesn't raise secular questions
Questions,
as much, for instance, as Samajwadi Party does.
or even the
In that
question of
event.
attacks on Muslims, or all of that.
And Muslims tend to go to the Samajwadi Party because whatever you may say, whether on Sambhal or Ayodhya, Samajwadi Party took a much better stand than Congress.
Clearly, Mr. Modi made some of the most horrifying hate speeches during the 2024 elections. But there's been a study which shows that every constituency where he made a hate speech, the BJP lost.
I see.
There has to be a lesson somewhere that in that long sweep of history that you spoke about, maybe the Indian people will resist.
No, and he descends to such things. I was listening to, an earlier election where he came to Aligarh and it was being on
Broadcast.
loudspeakers throughout. And he was saying that what do Muslims think of them, that the land belongs to them, everywhere they establish qabristans.
Yeah, yeah.
When our government comes, the qabristans will be thrown away.
Yeah. Yeah, this pitting of even the most elementary rights of day-to-day living, I think, and also all cultural symbols. I think that erasure is their masculinity, and where we started off, that is why the soul of India becoming free under Modi is what they're saying, and I think we need to say that.
Yes, but it's also now a question of funding and organization.
Okay.
And I think Congress and Samajwadi Party both they lack funding. But in UP, Samajwadi Party still giving a fight.
Yeah, which actually just does reflect that there isn't a societal consensus on Hindutva.
No. And it also means that electorate does have respect for leaders who have done something for them.
And who take principled positions on some of these
For
most crucial.
instance, in UP, under the Samajwadi government, any ill person would be taken to a hospital at government cost and treated free.
Okay.
And the taxi, they will pay for the taxi. There were specially cars marked for that. Which was I was in a village near Lucknow, everybody was saying that it's such a relief for us.
Such a relief for
Well,
us.
somebody falls ill, he is immediately taken to a Lucknow hospital. Within the fortnight of BJP coming, they stopped this.
Okay.
And nothing, people still vote for them.
Yeah, that is the mystery as well. I mean, I was reading that 100 years ago, when we had the last great pandemic, which was the Spanish flu, the sort of image that people wrote about was bodies floating in the Ganga. And 100 years later, we're still seeing bodies floating in the Ganga. And yet that government is voted back with great enthusiasm. So it's a complex, clouded, fraught moment in our republic. But I hope, as somebody who's witnessed India's journey for almost a century, and can see the long sweep of history, that we will prevail. Yes.
That's the point.
In your lifetime.
One lives on hope.
Yes, one lives on hope. And in your lifetime, I hope things change.
No, I don't think much will happen in the remaining part of my lifetime. I'm already 94.
Thank you, Irfan Sahab. I could not have imagined this this conversation, this very crucial, critical conversation without you. And I'm grateful that you had the patience to give us the time for it. And I think both me and my two young friends behind the camera were riveted by so many things that you said. And you live in hope, we live in hope. Yeah?
No, I'm very grateful to you for having this conversation, which made me think of issues about which otherwise I wouldn't have thought. And as you say, we live in hope.
Yeah.
As a historian, one can also see that one has perhaps seen better times as well. It's not only a question of future.
But as a historian, may we say we will also see better times. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Partitions of the Heart. You can find more Himal podcasts like the South Asia Review of Books and State of South Asia on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Support Himal's independent journalism by becoming a Himal patron today. We'll be back soon with another great conversation. See you then.